Welcome to Literarily Wasted. My name is Talia.
And I'm Christy.
And it's Adam and Lucas back here, but I'm about to go over to the chair. So back to Talia and Luke and Christy.
Who is who? Nobody knows. Yay. Does everyone have their beverage? Does everyone have their book? Great. I can't tell if you answered or not, so let's just start.
Well, we're talking about We've Always Lived in the Castle.
Yes.
The entire book.
The entire book.
The entire book. To be fair, it is a very small book. And I think everyone will agree with me. An interesting thing is, even though this is the smallest book we have read thus far, there's a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about.
Hey everybody, I'm in the chair now.
Hold on.
And
There's Adam.
I'm going
Hi.
to open.
It's me. Hello. Welcome.
Just kidding.
Literarily Wasted. We have always lived in the castle.
Keep talking.
What a book. So, as Talia was saying, small book, a lot of stuff in the book. This one, I feel like, is the most scholarly, is what Christy said. I said academic. There's just, you can analyze this book. Probably, you could write a dissertation about this book. There's just so much to unpack here.
I think also this book, people were the most polarized about it. So there were a lot of people who did not like it at all.
We had some heated debate happening in the group.
It was awesome.
Just a reminder, you guys, these are discussions, not arguments. So y'all be sweet to each other.
There were also a bunch of people who loved it.
Hello,
Be
everybody.
excellent to each other. So
Yes,
I guess what
that
we
is
should
the
do real quick before we get into the discussion, Matt Scalise says howdy, hey.
Hey, Matt.
Before we get into this discussion, and we got a lot to talk about, let's just do like our overall impressions. What did y'all think?
For me, it was really hard to get into. Going from V.E. Schwab to Shirley Jackson was rough. Like the first chapter was really hard for me. But once I got used to it, I really got into it. I really enjoyed being in Mary Cat's head, and I ended up really, really liking this book. Talia?
Can I? Okay.
We want honesty
I just
here.
want you to know, so I had so many thoughts about this book that I was worried I was going to forget them, and I actually made myself a page of notes, which I have never done for these live streams before. Words are hard. So I'm just going to make sure that I say this right. So I did not enjoy this story because this style is not my personal cup of tea. Sorry. Because I'm not done yet. Because I become very frustrated with these types of stories because there's a lack of solid answers, which is something I crave. However, I can acknowledge that is what makes this story so fascinating. So while I personally didn't like it, I am still kind of obsessed with it in a weird way. I was telling Christy it's a weird comparison, but I liken it to food. Like you can go to a really nice restaurant and have the head chef make you this really well-constructed meal, and you know that it's well done. I can acknowledge it, but if it's not your favorite preference of flavor, then it's just not for you. That being said, I obviously still have a lot of thoughts about it, but I'll save those for later.
And Meredith said she can't decide if I loved it or hated it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are having that
Yeah,
problem.
we had a lot of polarizing opinions, and you know, when I started it, obviously, like we just came from Vicious. But when I started it and I read the first chapter, I was like, "Oh no, what is this?"
Yeah.
Because the first chapter, especially, like, it's just Mary Cat's journey through the village, and I was like, I don't know what to feel about this. And then I kept reading it, and it was this like morbid fascination, and I was like, I don't really care that like not a lot is really happening sometimes, but like I was very fascinated with being in her head, and I really got into it, and I actually really enjoyed this book, and I didn't think I was going to. You know, I had there were a lot of people that were like, Shirley Jackson, ew, or like, oh no, I can't get into this book, and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be hard for me.
I felt like a bad reader. I had never heard of her.
Me too.
But now I'm obsessed.
I had heard of the Haunting on Hill House,
Yeah.
but I didn't know who wrote it.
Yeah.
I never knew.
The House on Haunted
Philip
Hill?
took notes
No.
too, which is interesting.
Is it?
But,
Well, in the lottery, I'm sure you've heard of that one. What?
you know,
What?
But being in Mary Cat's head was like, so it was fascinating, and I enjoyed it. But also like, and I had to read this sort of in big sections. You read it all in one night. I don't know how you did it, because every time I got done with like a stretch of reading, I had to like, I was like, oh no, like I feel like I'm thinking like her now, and I was like, I don't like this, because I like, hearing her thoughts and all that, like it kind of got to me. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I know, and then Lucas hasn't said it yet, but I just have to like really quick, because I'm gonna forget. This reminded me so much of Turn of the Screw, because it's so much is open to interpretation. There are so many of these ifs and maybes and wanderings, because like Turn of the Screw, you have this unreliable narrator, and I'm sorry, I'll wait on the rest so Lucas can say his part.
Am I talking now?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Hi, everybody.
Lucas, go.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to read everybody's comments, and I missed a couple of them, but yeah, it's one of those, like, you get through it and you're like, did I like it? I don't know, but I guess I was satisfied. Is that a good way to put it? So, guilty confession, I did have to listen to the audiobook because I had a lot of work travel recently. So I will say it wasn't as hard for me to get through because I listened to it in one stint on the way to Birmingham to Louisville. But yeah, fascinating, I guess, character studies. I think that's what Natalia's like,
That's the word, character study.
yeah, character study. She's highlighting something now, but
So if
but
you
no,
hear
I don't.
paper rustle-
I'm with some of y'all. It's like I don't know if I'd read it again. Granted, I didn't read it, but I enjoyed it and I appreciated it for what it was. And there are definitely moments that I really did love, and we'll talk about that. But it was fascinating. It was not what I was expecting at all. And I was telling Adam, I was like, man, I don't know what if we do this for our Mario Maker. between this and Vicious, I'd have a hard time making some Mario Maker levels. But I feel like I was satisfied.
Would I read again? I would go back and read parts of it again, and I think I had to. I had to, because there were certain things that we got to a certain point in the book, and I was like, I need to go back and read, like, especially this famous first paragraph, which we can talk about. The very opening, it's like one of the most famous opening paragraphs of all time in history, or said that one article. But yeah.
If I can just do a little side note here, Lucas, you said that you cheated. No, guilty. You're guilty that you listened to the audiobook and that you didn't actually read it. There's nothing wrong with audiobooks.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with audiobooks.
It is definitely reading, and I know there's a lot of like.
Yeah, Melissa said the audiobook is what got me through it, honestly.
Yeah,
so good for you,
audiobooks are
Melissa.
Great, and it's a great way to get like another form of media and get some more reading in.
Well, and I think it's in the same way that everyone learns differently. Everyone processes information differently. So honestly, like, I'm a very visual person. So if people are just talking to me, I tend to zone out. But other people need to hear the information. So it's just another way of processing books, in my opinion.
Scott has also validated audiobooks.
Yeah, so
and
Scott has read more
I
books
hold
than
Scott
all of
in
us.
the highest of literary degree.
Yeah, so nobody ever
thank you,
feel
Scott.
bad about reading audiobooks or ebooks or however you feel like you need to
And guess
read.
what? It is all about participation, everybody.
Yeah.
And welcome. If we didn't welcome you already, welcome again.
Okay, so I
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
I missed a comment. Someone said something about, and forgive me, it like scrolled past so fast. Someone made a comment about how they thought like in the end it would be like the others and that they would be like dead the whole time. Like in the end they would have been dead or something. So
yeah.
here is my favorite, I think my favorite thing about this book is it's like an anti-ghost story. To me, there is nothing supernatural or horror, really. Like, to me, this is a real story, and that's what makes it creepy.
Yeah, to me it was, I would reclassify it, or to me it felt more like a
Well, it's
murder
called-
mystery
it's
at
a
start.
gothic mystery is how it's classified. So
That's-
in that horror genre, I get it, but there's nothing supernatural about it. It's an anti-ghost story, and I loved that aspect because, yeah, real life's way scarier, man.
Yeah. Well, and so this is the comment from Katie Dahl. I thought the ending was going to be like the others, where they were really dead all along, especially after Uncle Julian's comment toward the end. And I guess that's where he said in front of Cousin Charles that Mary Cat died in the orphanage. And when he said that, like, I had to think, was Mary Cat a ghost this whole time? Like, but then clearly she's not. People talked to her. Cousin Charles was shocked when Uncle Julian said it, and I guess Charles actually said her name and like talked straight to her a couple of times. But like, it really did make me go back and think. And I think it would have been really cool if they had all been dead at the end, or the whole time.
I think his brain was addled by the arsenic, but it's also like, it's very interesting, like, in just how he views everything. And to be fair, a version of her did die in that orphanage.
Yeah.
She has not aged past 12. I know it starts
Mentally.
with, she is like, I am an 18-year-old girl. No, this Psycho Kitty is 12, if not younger. She has not mentally and emotionally moved past this event. She's still a child.
Well, in the comments earlier, Vicky Pack said most of their lives were dedicated to stopping time within their world. And yeah, I think definitely once that dinner party was over, like, I think they just tried to stop time after that for all of them, or whoever was left, actually.
Lisa says, yeah, I think Mary Cat's sanity died in the orphanage.
I think you could argue that it maybe was never fully there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seeing as how she did what she did.
Yeah,
to
I
the
forget.
family.
I forget where the comment was, but someone said they could sum up the book with one word: pity. Which I agree. It's. Very
I saw
piteous.
a big complaint that I saw was a lot of people thought there weren't any likable characters in this book. I agree with that, but for me that wasn't a problem. I didn't need to have a likable character in order to still be invested in what was happening. This is one of those rare times where, like, I did not feel empathy towards like any character. I didn't connect with anyone. I didn't like anyone. Honestly, I hated most of them. I haven't read anything in a while that has filled me with as much rage as the townspeople
Yeah.
scene, which we don't have to talk about just yet, but as I was reading it, I immediately was like, I was clenching the book. I was full of so much anger.
Are you talking about the townspeople at the beginning when she's doing her errands, or what after
No,
they?
she's talking about
okay.
the end.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you said that you hated most of the people, because I actually, the core Blackwoods, Mary Cat, Constance, and Uncle Julian, I didn't, they weren't unlikable to me.
They were
I
dysfunctionally
didn't
charming.
hate them. I hated
in a way.
Charles.
Charles was a jerk.
Like the moment, like the second page he was introduced, I told Lucas walked in the room and I was like, I hate Charles, but don't tell me any spoilers. And then I like went back reading.
That's right. You heard it here. That spoilers from me. Ha.
Yeah, I mean, Charles was, for all intents and purposes, the inciting incident here. Like, their lives were, for better or for worse, just going along.
Yeah.
They had their routines. Mary Cat had her, like, set
Her system
that she
and
did.
They were
routines.
happy.
Yeah.
They were happy. At least they
They
thought they
kept
were.
saying
At least
they were happy.
At least we thought they were, because we're getting it through Mary Cat's lens. But Charles comes along and just really upsets the balance. And that's what sets Mary Cat off into doing all of her mischief, which ends up burning the house down. And then
Only
everything
half
just
of
sort
it.
of resets to, we're happy now. And then they become some weird urban legend.
Matt said, really love that Charles never got the safe. Hate it for you, buddy.
Oh, I would have
Jonas
been
was the
so
most
mad if he
likable
got the
character.
money. Oh, I did like the cat.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
cat was
Jonas
great.
was awesome.
But yeah, he was all about that safe. Somebody get the safe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he was stealing everything. Little turd. Speaking of, I think actually on my notes, y'all can't read this from here, but I made character notes for each character, and under Charles, it just says, hate him.
Well,
That was worth writing.
you know,
Hashtag
this
hating.
whole story is from Mary Cat's perspective, and I think Scott said earlier that like Mary Cat's a really unreliable narrator, and to me, I was wondering, are the townspeople at the beginning as terrible as she says they are? Kind of proved that they were in the fire, but also, what about Cousin Charles? Was he as terrible as she said he was?
Yes.
But
Through her
we're
eyes.
getting it from her.
Yeah,
this is
she-
her perspective.
He disrupted her world, so it's
And like, there was also kind of the implication that possibly him and Constance were gonna get
Hook up?
married.
what was up with that?
It wasn't
I have 2 paragraphs on this one.
okay.
I mean, we're having a conversation.
Okay. It's fine. Go ahead. Sorry.
You should just probably
Just
do it.
breathe.
Did you... I would like to know, can we do a poll? Do you know how to do that? Never mind. Don't worry about it. People just comment.
It takes forever to get them anyway.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people's comments about... I don't even know how to do this. I'm so sorry. About this relationship between Constance and Charles and how there was like a
Ghostbusters, Gene, that was
Stop.
for you.
About how there was like a romantic
Gene.
interest there. And I am wondering where y'all got that. Like I need someone to actually
Well,
point it out to me because
It's when they were at dinner, right before she causes the fire, he keeps trying to say something, and it really sounds like he's about to introduce the fact that they're thinking about getting married.
Well, there's a lot of times where he keeps saying things like, Constance and I, Constance and I, and like that to me, I was thinking like he's gonna say like we've been talking and we're gonna like this is weird cousin thing going on, and no.
Yeah, that's weird.
No, okay, I completely disagree with this, and here are my reasons why. I wrote them down. So, I did not feel that there was any sexual tension or theme whatsoever. First off,
Matt Scalise,
no,
thank you.
Matt, be
Thank you,
quiet.
Matt.
Just kidding. I thank you for being a part of the discussion, but hold on. I didn't see that there was any
You're
sexual
getting fired
tension
up here.
because this is how I feel.
Okay.
This is not the 1700s. We are in the 1950s. They have cars. They have phones. This is a major taboo.
Doesn't mean you can't still get with your cousin.
Would you shut your mouth? I'm not done yet. So, this is not her romantic interest. This is her shady cousin who is out of money, whose family went broke, and he is trying to insert himself as the new patriarch of this family to get all of the money.
But do you
so
think
I'm
that
not done yet. Oh my God.
All right, this
Just
is
let
the
me get it
Talia
out.
show, everybody.
Let me just finish.
Sit back and relax.
I cut to you. It's okay.
Hey,
No.
it's me now. Just turn her mic off.
So he steps in and he sees that Constance is the caretaker. She is running the household. This is someone that he needs to have on his side. The only other male there is Julian, who is mentally unstable and no longer there. So he is degrading him and trying to move into a position where he is now taking over. So he needs to have her on his side. Also, just as an outside note, Shirley Jackson is notably known for writing content that has no sexual theme whatsoever. Like, no sexual content. It's all supposed to be driven forward about non-sexual relationships.
I didn't think it was going to be a sexual marriage.
No, it
Like,
definitely
no,
wasn't a sexual
that's-
marriage.
it's not
I don't think
romantic.
that Charles is beyond trying to
Manipulate.
arrange
Yeah.
some sort of legal agreement so that he can be the benefactor of her wealth.
So real quick though, talking about cousin Charles, Thomas Malden said the possibility of Charles being Mary Cat and Constance's half brother. Like, what about that? Because there are numerous mentions of how much he looks like John Blackwood. Also, the family has been severed, or the
Ooh,
family ties have been
deep.
severed between Arthur and his brother, and Charles seems to feel like the father's items should be his.
Yeah, he's trying to come in as new daddy,
Which-
not daddy.
No, but that's a great. I mean,
I
that's a
don't
great.
look. We're
point.
not saying trying to imply that Charles was trying to sexually hook up with Constance. We're trying to imply that he was trying to get her to marry him so that he could have a legitimate stake in the
You
in the
can't.
wealth.
It's illegal. This is the 1950s. This is a prestigious, wealthy family with wealthy, prestigious
Yeah.
friends.
They're the ones who could get away with it,
Yeah.
You
actually.
can't marry
Prestigious
your
wealthy
first
families
cousin.
stay in the family. That's what they do.
No.
Yeah.
No, I kind of while I agree with you that it wasn't sexual, it's one of those things where this guy is obviously a manipulator and he sees that there's an opportunity to work in his benefit and that he can to
And she,
Not developed past that point.
yeah. Well, and Mary Cat, she has a lot going on. I think, let's see.
Are we back?
I don't know.
So Carrie White said, it's easy to forget that she was 18 years old and not a 12-year-old. It's as if Constance preserved her from the age of the event. But I don't know how much it has to do with Constance. I feel like Mary Cat kind of controls the whole family. And like even with all of the rules and everything, I'm pretty sure she's the one who made them all.
Yes. So I thought that was really interesting because I wondered about all these rules that she kept talking about, all the things that she wasn't allowed to do. And it doesn't, I mean, I saw there were some instances where Constance said that she gave her some things she was allowed to do and was not. But yeah, then at the end, when it's about going into Uncle Julian's room, and she's like, I'm not allowed in there, and Constance like, it's okay, and she's like, no, I'm not allowed. And then she added more rules at the end. There were new things. She wasn't allowed to touch stone, and
She wasn't allowed to go to the creek because that was Uncle
Yes.
Julian's place now. Yeah.
so these are self-imposed rules. So that paired with this supposed witchcraft or her delusional thoughts about being on the moon and Pegasus, all of these things,
Peggy's.
all of these things allude, those types of things, what did I write? Those, when you suffer from a total lack of control,
Yeah.
when you have gone through experiences that are completely outside of your control, she has now built this world where everything is controlled and she controls it all. And that, once again, we've alluded to it before, seems like not a symptom.
It's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism from some horrific stress that she has endured.
Yeah. So as far as the witchcraft goes, and probably some of the other stuff, Leanne Mott said, I think it was more a type of OCD behavior, which I agree with. And Vicky Pack says, magical thinking shows up in many ways and isn't limited to weird people. Just look at sports enthusiasts. I think Mary Cat's psychological development was stunted by abuse and circumstance, so she reads as younger than her supposed 18 years.
Yeah.
Someone said Mary Cat makes Victor look sane, Carrie White.
I think you mean Eli, if
true.
we're talking about serial
They're both
killers.
pretty
They're both
crazy.
they're both a little insane. But and this may be jumping like way ahead to something, but we want to talk about like unanswered questions and
There's
like
a lot
things
of
that we
those.
could like postulate about.
So many.
Why did Mary Cat kill her family? That was never answered.
So, we all talk first about what you think.
Oh.
I-
She's
I agree with some others in the group who have said that there was some form of abuse happening within the family. There are obviously some clear-cut roles that are defined for the men and the women in this family, but also Julian mentions what kind of man his brother was, that even their son inherited some of these particular characteristics of his. And I don't think it was just Mary. I think Mary and Constance both suffered mental and emotional trauma at the hands of their family. And
take that for what
and
you
I
want it
will
to be.
pause and
And
let
it's
other
interesting
people
that there
talk.
was another sibling that was killed.
Yeah, but it
Thomas.
was the male sibling.
Yeah.
The rules are different for male and female.
And yeah, she killed them. So yeah, like Renee says, she killed him. So it was just her and her sister. But they never talk about why. I think that there was also some form of abuse. That's what it sort of added up to be. Like they sounded like a very strict family, and like we have rules, and like Mary Cat's having these daydreams where like everyone's like, Queen Mary Cat, Thomas, give her your food because she wants more food. And like you tend to think that like if this is her daydream about her family and like the ideal life, it was the exact opposite of that. Like,
Well, and it was also implied, if not completely said, that Mary Cat got punished all the time, and going to bed without dinner was a common occurrence.
yeah, and the way she reacted when
Yeah.
it was like, he
Cousin
was suggesting
Charles
that he was
said it.
that I think somebody said she was going to be punished, and then she freaked out and was like, "You mean go to bed without dinner?" And then she like ran off and had a tantrum.
So
After
does going to bed without dinner also imply that something else bad often happened alongside with that? Like,
Well, and you have to think about the time period
What's worse than not
and
eating?
the state of mental health awareness in the country, and like there's probably some stuff that they thought was bad behavior, wicked behavior, that was probably undiagnosed, severe, some sort of mental illness already cropping up early, and then that, spun itself, and they probably were horrible in who knows how many different ways. But that's kind of how I took it, was that based on the time period, and people, people go undiagnosed today for mental illness, right? But back then, and what, I guess we're in the 50s, right?
Yes.
Late 50s,
Ish.
mid 50s. That's kind of how I read into it, and then with adding that level of abuse onto an already mentally ill or prone young girl, brought that into it, and then we have the dinner.
Yeah, she was a child. And I was talking to another book member earlier today who could not join us this evening. She is tied up with commitments. But she brought up how this was obviously a very wealthy family. So you can afford to hire a cook or a maid or any of these things, but they didn't. Constance did everything.
Yeah.
They made her do it.
Well, and
She
Vicky,
was basically like the maid. She was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that was her like sole purpose, and she sort of adopted that even after the deaths of all the families. She sort of maintained like the caretaker role, and then Uncle Julian.
And that's what gives her structure. She needs to have that structure.
So Vicky Pack says, Constance said, I never should have reminded you of why they all died. Not how, but why they all died.
Mm.
And like Talia was saying, I really feel like if Constance didn't have a big role in it, she at least orchestrated it so that it was really easy for Mary Cat to
She
do
knew.
it. She already bought the arsenic. And she knew that it was going to happen. Well, she knew why it happened because she immediately cleaned out the sugar bowl. And she waited until after her family was dead to call like the ambulance or anything.
Yes, thank you so much. Constance was a huge part of this in my mind, if not even the one who orchestrated it. What if she's the one who orchestrated it and her poor sister, who's possibly, like you said, already suffering in some way, took the fall of actually acting this out? Because, yes, so she knew that Mary had poisoned the family. She knew while it was happening. She allowed it to happen.
Yep.
She covered it up by washing the sugar bowl.
And then she took credit
She
for
told
it
the
all.
police.
Not credit, but
She said they deserved to die. And then your part about how she bought the arsenic, Mary has that memory when she's in the summer home talking about how the reason they never go to the summer home is because her mom saw a rat go in and was horrified and said, we're never going there again. So they never went back. So why, if her mother is that horrified by rats, why would Constance buy arsenic for rats in their own home? Why would they be living in a home that had rat? Like, that was a huge disconnect for me. Like,
yeah.
there's no rats in that home for arsenic.
Yeah. Well, Philip says, and Connie knows way too much about poisons and is indoctrinating Mary Cat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
She was very quick to like educate other people.
Yeah.
About
that I will say, my favorite part of the book is Mary Cat basically trolling people throughout the entire
yeah.
book, and she knows it. And like, so at first, you set up the whole story, and she's going through the village and she's shopping, and you're like, okay, this little girl is obviously scared of something. These people are bad, and she's getting sugar, and they're like, sugar, and you're like, okay, it's just sugar. And then you find out later that, that the poison was in the sugar. And then, like, I love how and I know she's doing it on purpose, where she's basically sitting there all coy during tea or dinner and basically reciting all the poisonous flora and fauna and how quickly it can kill you, and just nonchalant, just, oh, by the way, I thought you should know. And
Charles
I was like,
that's not funny.
Charles was like, that's not funny.
But she knew exactly.
Oh, she knew exactly what she was doing.
Everything she did was very
Troll.
calculated.
Or offering tea to Mrs.
And
whoever
the
her name
cakes
is. with the-
before
yeah.
sandwiches and yeah.
Abby makes a good point. I had highlighted it here. Thank you for bringing it up. Maybe Constance felt guilty for not protecting Mary Cat. Guilt. Do we want to talk about that? That's a huge theme
yeah.
in this book. Like,
Yeah.
through to the
Well,
end.
anytime Mary Cat mentions Uncle Julian,
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I should be nicer to him.
yeah.
I
Like-
told myself I'd be nicer to him, and also Constance throughout like her sort of arc throughout the book, especially when Charles came and sort of put weird thoughts into her head. It was like, it came out at one point, it was like, I've done you such a disservice, and Uncle Julian, like, you should have boyfriend. And she's like, oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, I love you, silly Mary Cat. Like,
It's silly
Yeah.
having you boyfriend. No.
yeah, your boy, can you even imagine what that would be like?
So, Giggle Vids on YouTube says, I was confused by the beginning sentence when Mary Cat says, everyone else in my family is dead except Constance. And I wondered why Uncle Julian was not included in the exception.
I think he was. I think Uncle Julian was included in that statement. I think she was talking about the now, and then she went backwards. Like, I think it was framed. I think
So you
the
think
story was framed.
The beginning was after Uncle Julian
I think the
had died.
beginning, yeah, I think she was talking to us from the present, and then she took us back to the last day she went to the village when the library books went on the table and stayed there.
Yeah, because we've talked about it in the we actually talked about this on the way here because I missed most of the first chapter because it was really hard for me to adjust. But it does say, like, she looked at the library books that were 5 months old or something like that. So, like, it
Yeah.
definitely, and she picked those up on her that first run through the village that we got to experience with her.
Yeah.
Dang it! So there was a time hop.
Sorry,
It was a
I
time
just
hop.
ruined that. But it was a really small one.
But it was so subtle.
Maybe
It just like flowed into the next paragraph.
Well, and a lot of people missed it. I completely missed it.
Like, this book was Mary Cat telling us the story. So so she started with like, hi, this is me. This is who I am now. I could have been a werewolf. And then let's take it back to when the library books happened. And like, this is when things.
Well, check out what Philip said, and then Vicky had a response.
Julian never does. And we were
No,
talking about
he
that too.
doesn't,
He
yeah.
doesn't ever acknowledge her.
And then Vicky said, I checked, he never does.
Yeah.
Well, and there's some theories that maybe he is saying that she's dead, or he believes she's dead because he knows that it was her fault, and this is his way of like coping with that.
I don't know. I mean, he was so messed up from the poisoning.
Yeah,
You know,
there is that too.
And talk about these people who like try to eliminate their family, and then one guy's still hanging on, like, you know, sort of a caretaker burden to them, like a constant reminder of what happened. Like, that's got to be kind of weird. Speaking of Uncle Julian, I wanted to bring this up because this was interesting to me, because like I read it and it didn't make sense to me, and then I read the book and then I went back. Whenever Mary Cat goes to the village at the beginning and she's talking to Stella, the way that Stella always asks about the family. So she asks like, how are you? How is Miss Constance Blackwood? And how is him? Like, how is he? Like,
What about him?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
they
why-
never say his name.
why
Why?
him? You would think that if everyone thought that Constance was the one that murdered everybody, it would be and her, like the
Yeah.
murderer. But they referred to Uncle Julian as him, and that I want to know more about that. Somebody explain that to me.
While we're asking y'all to explain stuff, I need someone to give me some insight onto the symbolism of the preserves.
Preserves? The Blackwood preserves in the cellar?
The fact
Yes.
that all of the ones that weren't made by Constance aren't good to eat.
Well, I assumed that was because they were.
I thought they were
super old.
expired.
Yeah, I
I
thought
thought
they
it
were
was 'cause
old.
they were
I mean,
old.
Really
But
how
I
long
wanted
do
to know
preserves
why, like,
last for?
I
I don't know.
mean, their
This-
name.
this legacy of jam.
Yeah,
I
there was
want to
like
know some
it's
more
like a
about
Blackwood
that.
tradition that goes way, way back to have like nasty
1812.
yeah. So it's part of like her thing is to like make
Well, Matt, I
jam
didn't
and
see it.
stash it
Matt-
forever.
Sorry. Matt Scalisi just said, Talia, I made a comment on this earlier. Well, it scrolled past. Can you retype it, please? And now I'm looking for it. Because now Carrie says their life is preserved.
I mean, it is very non-developmental. Like they're gonna just sort of live out the rest of their
There has to be
days
more.
just like that. Like that status quo can never be disrupted. And now it's weird because they have this like this urban legend surrounding them. They are now the ghost story for
Yeah.
the kids to play in the front yard, and they're like, hee, that's cool. But they never want to show their face. It's also interesting. My mind going on another tangent about Constance's, the manifestation of her like insecurity is like, I can't leave the house and I can't let people see me. Even when there's a fire in the house, she has to cover her face and like remain hidden. like her gaining confidence is like, maybe I'll go out into the village today, and Mary Cat was chilled. And so it's like, that's interesting. I wonder where that comes from. Like,
Well,
I mean, she was on trial, and like, I imagine that was pretty public.
So yeah, so they talk about how, so it seems pretty clear that she now suffers from agoraphobia and also
Shirley Jackson did.
Yeah, and she writes herself and her children into these books. Super creepy, by the way. But
Oh,
anyways,
God.
That was a happy
she,
moment.
yeah, no. Well, she did say, so these sisters, that's a whole nother tangent, but Mary and Constance are very, very, very fictionalized versions of her daughters. She wrote them into this book. And yes,
Nice.
she suffered from agoraphobia, and Constance did as well, and obviously PTSD from this trial. And because, I don't know why I just almost called her Dorothy. Mary Kitty Cat talks about how during the trial and after, people wanted to come see the murderer. They were this spectacle. They would try and break into their home. They would take things as mementos from their home. They were stalked and as much in the limelight as one could be in this situation. And so that seems to have just turned them completely inward. And so of course she doesn't want to venture out. People are going to try to take a picture of her, and it's going to flash her back to this horrific event in their life.
So that probably leads us to the inevitable conversation of how terrible these people that live in the village are.
Yeah.
These are some horrible people. These people are crazy. What's going on with them? Like, they come and put out the fire at the house, and then they're like, let's trash it. Let's tease these people whose house just caught on fire.
Yeah.
Who are these people? What kind of village is this?
Well,
I never want to live in that
I
village.
really think you can completely blame that one fireman, the one who like trapped him at
Joe
trapped her at
Donnell or
Stella's
whatever
bar.
his name
Yeah, because they put out the fire. He took off his badge, right, and then
There it is.
Sorry, keep talking.
Oh.
I'll read.
and then he starts trashing the house. And I think everyone's adrenaline's up because they just watched this like mystical house burn.
So let's turn into 6-year-old bullies.
Yeah, but okay. The Blackwoods and the villagers didn't have the best relationship before the murder either. Because there were, the Mary Cat and Constance's mom made their dad put the fence up around the house because she didn't want any of the villagers walking through. There's obviously the issue with Mary Cat's mom and that house that should have been hers. Let's see. And then also Mr. Blackwood called the villagers trash at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a huge gap because of their classes, basically. But then also, yes, there's this crazy mob mentality that took over, and all of a sudden the villagers turned into animals.
Yeah.
Like, literal animals.
Yeah.
And started trashing this home to the point where when I was reading it, I thought for a second, this book's going in a whole different direction that I did not expect. The house is haunted, and now they're all possessed, and that's why they're behaving this way. Because, what on earth could have made them do this?
Should have just burned it down. He's like, yeah, you're right. Let's trash the windows and stuff.
Like,
It's massive, like Lillian says, it's mass hysteria. It's dogs and cats living together. There it is.
Oh,
Gene.
there it is. There it is.
You're welcome.
There it is.
Good job.
So Jeff said, did anyone get a Grey Gardens vibe from this? And Jeff,
Perhaps,
yes.
but I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
Grey Gardens, it's the relatives of the Kennedys, right?
Yes.
Jackie, the Onassis. Fascinating, and it's kind of around the same time. So we're not going to talk about Grey Gardens, but
Real
they've
life
made
story.
they've made it into a musical. It's fascinating, and
we
it takes.
saw the house. When
We saw
were
Grey
up in
Gardens.
the-
Yeah, I went up in the
we went
Hamptons.
up
So
Did you trash it?
very affluent
No, super
family,
human.
but there are multiple similarities. So yes, Jeff, good eye.
Oh, and Nicole, going back to the fire, the villagers were terrified when they were blocking the girls and attacking them. It got scary. And I completely forgot about that. But yeah, the villagers turned into
Yeah, they were
bigger jerks than they
They
already
were
were.
blocking their way and teasing them and reciting that weird poem.
Yeah.
And into their faces, yeah, your house just burned down. Y'all are trash. We're the best. And then, speaking of guilt, then they all decide to secretly bring them food.
Okay, I think it started as guilt and then it turned into out of fear. Big time.
Yeah, it's like, please don't kill us with your witchcraft.
Yes.
Crazy
Yeah.
witch ladies in the urban legend.
Our kids didn't mean it. Forgive
Yeah.
them.
I enjoyed that part too, because that's what took me back to this being a real life story. I wrote, so it felt like in this end they were showing us how legends come to be. Behind all of these haunted tales and folklore that we hear, there's a real story of real people behind that, and we got a peek at the origin of this one. Yeah, because I remember hearing those stories. There's like some trail tracks. Good Lord. There's the railroad, like here in Birmingham, where I remember going as a kid, and like all the teenagers were like, you're supposed to like park next to it, and like if you close your eyes and wait or something, then like little ghost kids come leave handprints on your
Bloody
car.
Mary.
Yeah, like you hear all of these things. What is the origin story behind it? This is the origin story of the two witches who live in this burned down haunted castle. Like, but the truth is, this is not the story of an evil murdering witch. This is the story of two very human sisters who are emotionally broken.
Damaged.
Yes.
I got kind of pulled out at the end because I was like, okay, I'm mentally viewing this house and it is trashed, but they still have power and running water, and I don't know, like
Just got
that's
the top
just, and I was
floor,
like, well, how
really.
are they paying their bills?
Well,
That
I
that pulled me
They
out.
might
All
not
that
have
power goes out
power.
there and
They don't
I
have
do-
a mortgage. They're wealthy.
No, but she says they have power, right? Yeah, I think.
They have clean water.
I know they
That's
have
what they
clean
said.
water and they're able to use the stove, but that could be either
Could be
gas
gas.
or wood.
Still got to pay their gas bill.
right?
They don't have to pay bills.
Alagasco comes out.
Oh
and
my
they're
God.
like, we gotta check the meter and be like, okay. Yeah, I mean they don't have a phone. You know, like there's no communication. Yeah, I mean we can talk about logistics, whatever.
Yeah, sorry.
They have trash pickup.
You
Like
and
where
your
does the trash
super
go?
practical brain.
Well, but also,
Who takes the trash out?
how long after the fire did the book go? Because the month could have still been up. I mean,
It went a little while, and that was one of my like. I guess it was a criticism that I had. Was like the fire incident seemed like a big sort of climactic event of the book, and then I feel like we got kind of a Lord of the Rings 3 ending where it just kind of kept going, and I was like, okay, I get it.
Oh yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did think more people were going to die than just Uncle Julian. Like, I thought that there was going to be another poisoning.
I thought Charles was
or-
going to get it for sure.
Yeah, and you kind of hoped for it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Where's the
thought
redemption?
Literally everybody that Mary Cat was like, I picture them dead. I want them dead.
I'm
I
going to
wanted
walk
them
on
dead.
their
Yeah, I
bodies
wanna-
and
yeah.
yeah.
After that whole villager thing, when they all circled, when I thought they were going to be stoned, and she said that she was going to make them all pay, I thought, oh, she's going to take all the old preserves from the cellar and feed them to the whole village. And
Yeah, like, they
Like-
would
When I was first reading the part where early on you're like, oh well, that's kind of odd for her to say that she imagines her walking over all these dead bodies in the village. Okay, I thought
was
that
a
this
little
book was going to
odd.
be a little bit more mystical, magical, like, and I thought she was going to kind of have like 11 powers from Stranger Things and be able to just
That's
be
what
like,
you wanted.
snap,
You
gone.
wanted that to happen.
the
I
difference
know.
is 11
The
is
reality was so
a
much
good little
worse.
girl, and this girl is not.
Someone, as far as like how long after the fire, it has to be a long time because the
vine.
ivy, goes, or the vines go over the roof and kind of hide a lot of the damage, and I didn't think about that.
Lillian says, see the movie, guys.
We will. We're gonna.
Yeah, we wanted to
I
wait until
intentionally-
after.
Yeah, didn't want to watch it because I didn't want it to like influence my. Because then I blur the line. I'm like, did that happen in the book or did that happen in the movie? And I wanted to make sure I knew what happened in the book. But we're gonna watch it.
So I guess my next question, and this is really for Talia. So if y'all caught cooking the book for the night circus, what are we gonna have? Are we gonna have a berry tart?
No,
Arsenic berries.
we could do that. Well, I looked up rarebit because I.
Oh yeah,
What is
that?
rarebit? Because I thought they were
It's
mispronouncing it.
No, it's a piece of bread, and then it has like a beer cheese Worcestershire sauce on top, basically. And I'd never heard of it, so I looked it up, and I think we should make it because it sounds really good.
It sounds like a video game.
Should we do that, or
development
should we
company.
make a berry pie?
We can do berry pie for dessert.
Ooh.
I have to make 2 things.
Shh, it'll be fine.
Don't worry, it'll be our last meal.
Okay, wait, maybe we shouldn't
That's
do.
a joke, not because I'm putting arsenic in
Yes,
it, but because I'm
yes.
really not a good cook.
Boom! Cyclops for the win.
Maybe we shouldn't do a dessert. Nothing with sugar.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'll be like Charles. I'll be like,
I love when he has a pancake and then he's like, oh, if I just start talking, they won't notice that I'm not eating this pancake.
but then they're like,
And no, Constance calls him out.
I
She's like,
know.
"Are you really not going to eat that?"
I love how she was like, "You ate a full meal last night
Yeah.
and woke up alive this morning."
Yeah. That was hilarious.
And he's like, and she's like, let me tell you about the poisons in the mushrooms. I'll give you 5 to 7 days.
I know. You won't die until 10 days after.
Matt said, "Yeah, make Uncle Julian's
Oh.
liver."
I had some questions about their taste in food throughout this book.
It was the
They're like,
50s.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I want a
still.
nice broiled liver and an egg.
And she's like, sure, I got that. I'm like, what? Okay.
Melissa says, "Make the berry pie, Talia."
So how do you make beer cheese? I'll Google it. It's
Oh,
fun.
I can
Chrissy
I can
does
do
beer
that.
cheese all the time.
That's the thing.
Oh my God, we can.
Awesome.
Okay.
It's awesome. So okay, question. Did y'all know that Mary Cat was the poisoner?
Yes.
At the beginning.
Well, okay, so I suspected it, and then I realized I forgot to read the introduction, and he straight up just says it in the introduction.
Oh,
and I
that's
was
the
like,
worst.
you jerk. Why would you do
That
this
is
to
the
me?
worst.
So sorry to everybody who read the introduction, like me,
Mm-hmm.
at least that part of the introduction that would because it was like, Constance says it, but we all know Mary Cat's the real culprit. I was like, well, great,
Yes.
I'm done.
So I didn't read. Thank you for everyone who posted in the group that the introduction had spoilers in it, so I knew not to read it until I was done.
Why would you do that?
But yeah, I assumed she was, but then I thought she's gonna put a twist in there, and Constance will have been the killer. And honestly, I think I was right. I think this was a lovely joint effort of murder. So I don't see Mary as. I think this was. I don't think it was clear cut that Mary was the murderer. I know it says that in the introduction, but Constance friggin' knew.
This is the sentence from the introduction. He's introducing you to the characters.
Sorry, spoiler alert in case you haven't
Mary Cat
tuning
Blackwood.
Too
in.
little late for that.
A willful demon prankster, attuned to nature, to the rhythm of the seasons, and to death, and the clear culprit in the unsolved crime of having poisoned all the remaining members of the Blackwood family.
Jesus. Geek rant.
Did they tell you were writing the afterward? And then they were like, let's make it the introduction.
Hey, we should email that dude.
Who is this guy? Jonathan Lethem?
Do you
Burn.
think he's still alive?
Lethem? I don't know. I'm going to Google him. I'm going
Do
to
it.
find his Facebook page.
So
What?
He's an author.
He's an author? Is he still alive? Does he have a Facebook?
Fortress of Solitude. He wrote Motherless Brooklyn's coming out in a couple of weeks.
Does he have a Twitter?
What?
He did the board.
So he should know better. He's an author. Send him a pie.
I'm gonna I'm gonna read him. I'm gonna read the last page of all of his books and just post it on his Twitter.
Yes.
There he is.
Troll.
This guy.
You're up. He would.
Wait, I
Spoiler.
want to see.
He would.
You're as bad as the
I-
townspeople.
I don't know. He just looks like a normal human. I don't get it. But
also, this is our first of 2 Halloweeny reads.
Halloween.
So, how do you think this holds up as a Halloween book, or a book for like October?
There was death. There was murder. I'm in it.
I honestly thought that this was really nice because I feel like, especially in regards to Halloween, everything does tend to go in a supernatural direction. And I thought it was really, really cool to read a very, I don't want to say realistic, but realistic horror story that, like,
Yeah, I agree. I think
About-
that
the human monster.
like the scary thing to me about this book is that it's possible that I know somebody like this and I just
Yeah.
don't know it. Like
Ew!
I know. Maybe it's me.
That's way scarier. You're not allowed to be in cooking the book anymore.
I just eat the things. But as far as being a Halloweeny book, it was gothic. I think gothic kind of fits in the paradigm of Halloween, and it had, you know, some creepiness. I wouldn't say like it was spooky or like monstrous or scary. Yeah,
It was haunting.
it was haunting, and it was, you know, like I was unnerved being in her head, especially like when she went to the dark places. I was like, I'm in there.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Yeah. But it was also like morbidly fascinating for me.
Yeah, it's like an origin of a Halloween story.
Oh, so Gigglevid says, I was surprised after seeing the cover at how gardeny and sunny and bright colors it was in the descriptions, but totally felt Halloweeny. And I think that's a really interesting mashup.
Look
Yeah,
at-
she's described as The intro spoilers were the worst thing since Bailey's email address. Right? Yes, totally unnecessary. But yeah, so she even talks about that though, how Mary Cat sees all the villagers in black and white and shades of gray, and like how they're all devoid of color, and she sees her sister Constance as this beautiful source of white light and pink, and with her glowing yellow, like she sees her as this sunny persona. And the one reason she doesn't totally hate Stella all the time is Stella occasionally wears a pink so bright that it retains some of its color. I want to know what y'all are laughing at.
Just a comment.
Oh my god.
Speaking of her eyesight, Adam had pointed out earlier to me about her eyesight with the fire.
Oh yeah, that was when she put the pipe in the trash can and it caught on fire. The way she described it was so fascinating to me. She was like, my left eye saw like red and yellow, and my right eye saw like blue and purple, and like she didn't say what it was, but I was like, that's fire. That's a fire, because it said she knocked the still burning cinders from the pipe onto a trash can which was full of newspaper, and I was like, well, there you go. And then she said what she saw, and I put it together. But I thought the way that she described that, I was like, I like that. I applaud that.
That's really interesting, because I knew it was fire right away, because obviously she knocked a still burning pipe into newspapers. But I saw it as like she had already turned away from it, and it's like she was looking elsewhere, so she saw it like the fire burning out of the corner of her eye.
Yeah.
So that's how, but I like that way.
It's just interesting that, I mean, that's how she's described it, was that one eye saw certain colors and the other side saw the other colors. She never straight up said like, I caught on fire, but like, she knows exactly what she did. And just the details that she decides to give you are not the details that I think anybody else would give you in that circumstance. I would be like, I knocked the pipe in and I saw the newspaper catch on fire, and I walked right back out.
Well, she also did it with a very specific goal in mind, and it was to drive Cousin Charles away, and she was completely successful.
She wasn't. She was trying to drive him away by like erasing him from the house.
Which she was successful.
She was very successful.
They burned him right out.
Like
Yeah.
she had some bizarre
Burn the house
rituals.
down.
Like she buried things, she nailed things to trees, and like the words. And did y'all already mention it? But like the like safe words that she was trying to come up with, and like all these things that she did for herself, the rules that she placed on herself. And then like the actions that she would take, for once she had like a sane bit of action where she was like, guys, I think I'm just going to go ask Uncle Charles,
I know,
the cousin Charles, to see if he would leave. And then she did, and it didn't go well because Charles like threatened her.
So Don Mitchell says, so she set the fire for the same reason she poisoned her family, to save her and her sister from her family. And I kind of love that.
Yeah. Yeah, the family was bad.
Yeah.
Except for her and her sister. And she hated Charles from the moment he appeared in the doorway. Like
She would have hated anybody.
She didn't
though.
even give him
It
a
had
chance.
nothing to do with him.
Yeah, but then it did.
He was still a D-bag.
I hated
And
him
it's
too.
still from Mary Cat's perspective. So there could be some details we don't have. There's probably many details that we don't have.
From Charles's perspective, he obviously was about getting the money, but he was also like about like liberating Constance in a weird way, like even though he was still kind of making her like do all the things, but it would be like they would be like, well, somebody would be like, Constance, can you make me this? And she would be like, no, she can't do that for you, and like
She's too busy. Yeah.
But that's the thing. She was busy. So he wasn't liberating her. He was making her, instead of doing stuff for other people, he was making her do stuff for him. She was still the servant of the family.
what was she doing for him?
To make me, he was eating all the time.
Did he encourage her to leave the house and go to town?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, to go to the city and go shopping. And
Oh,
stuff.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, there might have been some real, like, trying to help push her out of, like, this cage that she's in.
Did he want her out so that he could snoop through the house and take all the things?
I don't think so, because she would have let him anyways. It's Mary Cat that would have stopped him.
Well, they didn't care about the money. Like, the money was so inconsequential to
She
them.
friggin' buried it.
It was like, money,
Yeah.
They didn't care.
So Vicky Pack says Charles wasn't liberating Constance. He just wanted her to serve only him.
Yeah,
Which
I can
explains
see
why
that.
he wanted Uncle Julian and Mary Cat out.
To leave him alone.
Mm-hmm.
But is it all just in service of like getting their money? Because he was all about he got so upset over that watch. He was
Yeah.
like, why would you nail the watch to a tree? Oh my God, like it's bent. But he still wore it. He still wore the band. And then like there was somebody that
Yeah, because
commented
he
before
couldn't sell it.
about the scarf. Like I could have worn your dead dad's scarf.
Yeah.
Like he wanted all that stuff.
That lifestyle.
Yeah, Charles was a jerk. I'm trying not to say bad words.
He sucked butt. He was the worst.
Oh, I thought you were gonna like.
I was
say
like, is that a
something redeeming
comment?
about him?
Oh no.
He sucked,
just-
but
He was, no.
period.
He just was awful.
So David Stein says he was a pauper. He didn't have any money. He was after the family's old money. And yeah, that's definitely the perspective that we got.
But it's interesting though, like what his story was prior to his arrival, and that he went there like after his dad died,
And it seemed like right after.
like immediately,
Mm-hmm.
and like the fact that at least Uncle Julian sort of in his unreliable way about like their side of the family, and like those guys are jerks. They like completely ignored us after all that happened, and like
Well, they wanted to completely cut ties.
yeah. And then he's like, and so Charles, I guess, was like, they have money, and I don't, and I need to go get that money because they're weird.
Yeah.
They're family.
Also, to argue against me, actually,
Against yourself?
yeah, well, no, listen, Mary Cat doesn't care about money at all. So I think that, like, she wouldn't be making that up about him saying that he's, like, obsessed with the safe, because I don't think she has the capacity to care at all or understand that he does.
Yeah, Meredith says when he was mad because of the silver dollars and said the money wasn't Mary Catherine's to bury, that bugged me a lot because I was like, it's not yours either, you turd. Like, it is hers. It's her family's, but because he is the man of the family, he's like, of course, no, it's not going to belong to the girl.
Yeah.
It's mine. It should be rightfully mine because I'm the man of this family. Sorry. It just makes me mad.
What a jerk.
Right?
All right. It's
Final thoughts.
hit the hour here.
If it's something we haven't discussed, throw it on out there, and we're going to try and read it really quickly. Yes, Leanne says he felt entitled to it because he was the last male Blackwood. Because he didn't see Julian as... Julian wasn't, like, really all there. Nicole is very impressed by all of our clean language. Thank you, Nicole.
We're trying really hard.
practiced.
Very difficult. Very difficult. And, you know, we're in public.
Kristen says, what is the meaning of life? 42. Jennifer says, anyone care to talk about Helen and Jim Clark? They seemed like good people. They did.
Yeah.
They were redeemable.
Like, they really did want to help. Although I thought it was really weird how then he came back later with the doctor and they were like, you know, shame on you for not asking for help. And I was like, what?
There were a lot of
That's
bizarre
just
tactics
leave.
that they used to try to get them out of the house.
Yeah.
It was like begging, like, please come in. Then it was like reprimanding them for doing it. It's like, please, hey, you're being bad. Like, shame on you.
The same
It's like,
with the villagers. It's this weird flip-flop of aggression and guilt.
it's
like, back and
interesting.
forth.
It's interesting that the way that the villagers are portrayed through the eyes of Mary Cat, because they are extremely one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
She said some of them don't have faces.
yeah, like they and that comes across in the way the book is told. Like I see like these like very like cardboard cutouty people, like villagers. Like here's the person who runs the coffee shop, like that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, we're doing this.
Okay.
What that means. But yeah. So final
that's right.
thoughts. We have always lived in the castle.
Her sociopathic view.
What a fascinating book. It is. The more we talk about it, the more it's something that I could go back and read more of, just to study it more. I'm probably not going to because we got to read another book in October.
2 books in 1 month?
It's
Wow.
still frustrating though, because the thing is, we're never gonna
You'll
we're
never
never
know.
gonna get the answers.
Yeah, Shirley Jackson's dead. Can't ask her about it.
But like the story is so ambiguous into itself. Like you're just all you
She
can
did
do
it
is
on purpose.
postulate, like
because-
over and over and over
Because
again.
we're still talking about it. See?
What are you pointing at?
She's living on.
Oh.
She's lived on through us. We're still talking about it. That's why she did it. She had just given us all the answers. We'd be like, okay, cool, done. But no, we're having a discussion. It's a 140-page book full of discussion. Thank you, Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
This has been
And
nice.
thank you to whoever recommended this in our
Yeah.
discussion about October books, because this was not on my radar and I don't think I would have ever picked it up, but I ended up really, really enjoying it and I'm really glad we read it.
I would have never read this otherwise,
Yeah.
which is one of my very favorite things about this book club. And speaking of things that we're going to read, the video will come out later this week, but for all of y'all that are joining us now, the November book, what won the poll, is Stephen King's The Eye of the Dragon.
Eyes, plural.
Eyes of the Dragon.
Not
She has
Cyclops.
read it.
You've
but
read this
don't-
before.
On the book cover, he only has one.
He's looking.
So-
He's a profile picture.
So the formal announcement about that will come out on Friday, but I checked all the thingies off my list. I don't have anything else.
I didn't
to
even
say.
make a list.
Good job, guys.
I'm just here. But yeah, Eyes of the Dragon for November. But for October, we still have Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, which should be a bit of a departure from We've Always Lived in the Castle. What?
3 weeks.
3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So you have 3 weeks to read this book. It's not super long. Y'all read half of The Night Circus in 2 weeks, which is almost as long as Interview with the Vampire. So I don't want to hear it.
We believe in you. You can do it.
And listen, just to reiterate, we had a lot of polarization on this book. There was a lot of spirited discussion in the group, which is great. And again, we don't pick these books. Y'all do. So, it's what you voted for. A lol Cyclops shirt. That's not funny. It's real serious.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, we appreciate the spirited discussion. Keep it civil. Remember, you don't have to like every book to be a part of this book club. We've shown that. We picked,
Within ourselves.
we picked the majority. Whatever wins, even if I didn't vote for it, which happened in November. But hey, I'm looking forward to Stephen King. I've read it once before, and I'll read it again, but after I read Interview with the Vampire.
Yep.
Yes. And on that note, we want to remind you to stay in touch with everything that we're doing. We are on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And we also have a Facebook group where we have more in-depth conversations like all of the stuff that we've been talking about in this book. And that is called the Literarily Wasted Lounge. We also want to thank you to all the wine's gone. Thank you to Second and Charles for letting us drink and talk about books in your store, and also for giving all of our book club members 20% off of the book of the month. That will apply even if you didn't read this book. You can still get it and read it later this month, and you'll still get 20% off. You'll get 20% off of this one. You get 20% off of Interview with the Vampire, which I don't have with me. And then next month, you get 20% off of this one. So buy all the books, read all the books, find us on the internet, and talk to us about them, because that's what we like to do. I'm done.
Thanks,
Y'all done?
everybody.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Y'all have a great night.
We'll see you all in 3 weeks.